Habermas's chapter on Derrida. He basically says that Derrida makes a startling turn and enlists linguistics in the service of the critique of metaphysics, as if Derrida turns philosophical discourse into linguistic analysis. In Habermas's view, Derrida does not make use of the analysis of ordinary language carried out in the Anglo-Saxon world, as if Habermas implies some sort of subtle indication of inferiority in English language. Can you please elaborate on that?
Habermas is saying that Heidegger did not study, nor did he care about language. So his whole idea is, in the traditional sense, that using language as a vehicle to carry on the thoughts and ideas, whereas Derrida is paying more attention to language. Even look at grammatology. I think we often misled whether Habermas was aware of that or not, or he was doing this on purpose. He's trying to direct Derrida to a direction that to tell you, before Derrida, the philosophers did not really study language to indicate how much language involves impact philosophy, as if Derrida was the first one, and the way he opens his battlefield, study language. But in reality, that's not really true, because a few years back, and you're going to find out, you read anything about Wittgenstein, kind of like a columnist. People write a very cute, witty passage every week. There is a saying, like Confucius says. Confucius said nothing like what Confucius says, because this whole Confucius says was invented in America in the 30s or 40s by Americans. Wittgenstein is a paragraph philosopher. I think so. It's only because there are almost not a single scholar to this very day to indicate clearly that Wittgenstein's treatise on language is different from Derrida. So there are people dealing with language. Philosophers talking about the language. Started with Wittgenstein. The next thing is Barth. And of course, Derrida. In this sense, Stephen Hawking said, Wittgenstein said that in the 20th century, philosophy has the only thing left to do is to study or discuss language. I think that's kind of a cliche and shallow. Essentially, all these descriptions that Habermas put on Derrida regarding the language and the philosophy can be pretty accurate to Wittgenstein, but not to Derrida. Because Derrida is going to uproot the Western metaphysics ontology completely. That's what his job, his intention. However, to do so, you have to destruct phonetic language first. It was Derrida's genius. He recognized, he sees the Western metaphysics, to be specific, the Greek ontology, cannot be parted from the phonetic language. That is to say, Western ontology cannot be really translated into non-phonetic language. Once you translate it into that, things don't always make sense. Habermas is well aware. He's saying that to the Anglo-Saxon world, which is all the English-speaking world, Derrida, I think, becomes something very hard to understand. Even within phonetic language, French, and you have this difficulty here. So now, no one makes this claim, but I think they mean that they don't say it. And I think this guy is basically saying that the English is a second rate of language. Compare French, particularly German, it's really not a philosophical, intelligent language. That's the indication. As you probably spotted that in my book, The Self We Deserve, the movement, people talk about the phonetic language. You don't get this all confused. Even that book was written in English, but the discussion was carried on basically in Greek, Latin, and French. German and French even become the bottom layer in that whole thing. The English is completely out. No one's going to take English seriously. So that's why ordinary language carried out in Anglo-Saxon world. That's what that means. English is no good, can deal with highly sophisticated thoughts.